This is a presentation of the St. Catherine University Library, and I'm Kathy Rickert. This video will introduce you to the writing technique known as paraphrasing. Successfully paraphrasing from your information sources will help you avoid plagiarism. Students might unintentionally plagiarize when they don't give credit to an information source or when the words written in their papers are too close to the original sources. The first is an issue of knowing how and when to cite, and the second involves academic writing techniques. There are three main ways to incorporate the words and ideas from a source into academic writing. Those techniques are quoting, or using the exact words from a source, paraphrasing, which means to restate information from a source in your own words, and summarizing, which gives a brief overview of the research findings found in an information source. Other videos describe quoting and summarizing, and this one gives techniques for paraphrasing. The steps required to paraphrase are shown here. First, read your information source so you have a thorough understanding of it. As you write your paper, determine where this source fits into the context of your paper. Next, rewrite the details or ideas from the source in your own words. In later slides, I'll give you some techniques for doing this. And finally, be sure to properly cite your source. I'll say it more than once and I can't emphasize it enough. If you don't cite the source, you are claiming it as your own. In order to avoid plagiarism, you have to give credit to the original source within your paper. A good rule of thumb that I've come across when researching paraphrasing is this. Whenever you have written more than 3 words that are identical to your source, you have done more than paraphrasing. You are quoting. In other words, a paraphrase can have up to 3 words that are the same as your source. Any more than that, and you should put the information in quotation marks and include a full citation for the quote with author's date and page number. Over the years, I've heard so many students say, "My professors tell us to paraphrase, but nobody tells us how to do it." So let's look at 5 paraphrasing strategies. There's no doubt that there's more, but learning about and practicing these 5 techniques will give you some writing tools to use right away. First, you can replace key or distinctive words or phrases from the original source with synonyms. The example here reads, "The transformation approach of leadership describes how leaders can initiate, develop, and carry out significant changes in organization." In my paraphrase version, I changed transformation approach to leadership to simply transformational leadership, as shown in red. I changed can initiate, develop, and carry out to are notably responsible for. And I changed significant changes in organizations to organizational change. Note that the basic meaning of the paraphrase version is essentially the same as the original, and I substituted key phrases for synonyms. Note also that the paraphrase version is somewhat shorter and more concise than the original. Another technique is to change the syntactic structure of the sentence. In other words, this has to do with changing the order of the subjects, verbs, and objects in the sentence. In this example, I focused on what I thought were the main ideas of the sentence, that there are structural explanations for homelessness that are beyond the control of individuals. In my paraphrase version, I wanted to convey those same ideas, so I focused on these 2 main points. I changed them, as you can see, by changing not only the order of these main points, but also by substituting terms that are more in keeping with the tone of my paper. This next technique involves changing a negative tone in your source to a positive tone in your paper. My source reads, "People will not recognize their leadership strengths until they practice them." I changed this to read, "As people practice being leaders, they gain confidence in their leadership skills." Notice that I use somewhat different wording as well as changing the negative to a positive tone. The basic idea remains the same as the original. Next, when information you want to use is found in a direct quote, consider translating the meaning of the quote into your own words. This is a quote from an interview with John Kerry, which had to do with international cooperation to stop ISIS. I wrote my own take on what he said, stressing the importance of a joint effort by countries in taking military action. And the last technique involves changing numbers to percentages and percentages to numbers. This example reports that injury accounts for 30% of childhood death. In the paraphrase version, I changed 30% to read 1 in 3. I also changed older children and adolescents to read teens and preteens. This paraphrase version is shorter and gives less detail than the original, but I think it makes the similar point, retains the same meaning, and uses my own words. I hope these examples have helped you in understanding the variety of paraphrasing techniques that you can use. Applying them can help you make your writing your own, and in doing this, avoid plagiarism. Tips for doing this include using multiple paraphrasing techniques, as I have demonstrated here. Fitting the source materials into your writing while keeping the intended meaning. A good practice is keeping track in your notes of which are direct quotes and which are your own words. In this way, you can avoid unintentionally plagiarizing. And of course, remember to always include a citation to the original source for any material you have paraphrased or have quoted. In order to avoid plagiarism, avoid these common paraphrasing pitfalls in your writing: misunderstanding the original source material, including too much of the exact wording of the source material in your paraphrase, substituting inappropriate synonyms, using source material out of context, changing the meaning, and finally, not citing the original source of the information. And remember the rule of thumb that a paraphrase can use no more than 3 consecutive words that are identical to the source. Any more than this, and you are quoting. To learn more about this topic, please speak with a librarian.